You want us to let it roll?
Is this on?
I believe it's on. Hello, I'm Avery Lyford, Chairman-elect of the Churchill Club.
I'm Michael Moon. I'm also on the board and co-curator of the 25th anniversary celebration.
The Churchill Club I like to think of as delivering pleasant surprises. And we hope that our little introduction at the beginning here will be one of those pleasant surprises.
But before we talk about some of the great moments of the last 25 years, we want to recognize two people in particular who founded the club, Rich Carlgard and Tony Perkins. They started this venture 25 years ago and have been active ever since. Please join me in thanking them for their contributions. Tony couldn't make it tonight, but I believe, Rich, you're here. Could we entice you to come up and say a few words?
Well, thank you so much. Tony's not here because I heard they set up a sobriety road check on Great Amera Parkway. So. But seriously, when we started the club in 1985, it was a very simple belief that Silicon Valley was the Florence of its day. And when you look at the global economy today, and particularly the U.S. economy, which is in tatters, lack of confidence, all that stuff, the one outlier continues to be Silicon Valley. And it's because it has it all, the universities, venture capital, the professional services, and I like to think that the club has made a contribution to that. So congratulations to all of you who have taken the vision that Tony and I had and carried it forward to the point that it's reached today.
Before you go, can we see you put on the Churchill? Splendid.
You know, one of the things I've always enjoyed is the club's ability to pick a hot topic, get the smartest people in the world up on a panel, and provoke a spirited debate. One great example of that is, you know, a couple of years ago, we had our first great debate about the future of enterprise software. And, you know, we had wonderful introduction with Quentin Hardy, talking a little bit about that, and he got Hasso Plattner of SAP and Mark Benioff in a discussion. And so Quentin Hardy described it in a very interesting way. Let's roll that clip.
Welcome to the Churchill Club's first ever enterprise software crystal ball gaze, prognostication soiree, reality check, hype fest, and executive cage match smackdown.
So that's how that went down.
Well, not quite. It was an interesting discussion. Two people with some pretty strong opinions. And, you know, Hasso, you know, obviously Mark's a bit younger than Hasso, so Hasso had a bit of advice for Mark, and I think we'll roll that now.
I only give you this advice, but you might not take it because you're younger.
You know how it goes.
Don't overestimate your platform. We have so many platforms. We put on, and they were too weak, and they went away. With them, taking with them whole computer companies. So be careful.
There are also a number of people that have been, you know, involved with the club. Obviously, Rich and Tony from the very beginning. We also a number of other people that have been moderators or speakers for multiple events. People like Steve Smith, who's here in the audience and has just joined the board. People like Guy Kawasaki, who's done, over tens of events where he's moderated or spoken at. We've got a little clip of Guy and some of the stuff he's had to share with us.
I love doing panels, and I love doing this moderation job. Some of you may have seen me do keynote speeches, and believe it or not, those are pretty much, you know, everyone is very consistent. With a panel, you just never know what's going to happen. So I really do enjoy these. It's my second one of the day, so I'm really all warmed up for you.
So obviously, Guy has been in Silicon Valley a long time, the other thing we try to do is bring people in from outside Silicon Valley. And one of the people was very interesting. You know, this is not long, as we sit here today, not long after 9/11. And one of the people he had come and speak was Rudy Giuliani. And he shared with us some of the ways that Churchill was an inspiration for him into very dark days after 9/11.
When I think of Winston Churchill, who has in fact been a hero of mine for many, many years, and I was talking earlier about how he helped me get through September 11. One of the things that I always remembered about Winston Churchill, having read many of his biographies and descriptions of those, one of the ways to get through crisis and difficulty was to have a good sense of humor.
So the other thing that we've spent a lot of time focusing on as a group is innovation. Innovation in all of its forms.
Innovation takes multiple forms, and we've had hundreds of discussions over the years about innovation. And though there's many different ways to practice it, it does apply to every industry out there.
One of the ones that was very interesting was Jeff Bezos. One of the ones that has really stuck in my mind. He talked about, for him at Amazon, innovation was not about focusing on technology. Instead, he focused on the eternals, the things that would never change, the customer needs, and then how can technology help him better address those needs?
It reminds me a little bit of Reed Hastings of Netflix comments about innovation.
See, for a technology company, when you look at threats, I mean, how did Sun fail? Did they fail because they had 3 weeks versus 2 weeks vacation? No. They failed because of a lack of innovation. They should have been Amazon's cloud. They had all the resources, all the ability in the year to, they didn't come up with it. They failed to innovate. And so what kills companies in our world is failure to innovate.
So one of the things that also we like to do is get people up with a passionate point of view. Get that unexpected surprise by getting people like, Reed Hastings and Michael Eisner up on stage. And some of the ones that really stick in my mind, there was a time that Ivan Seidenberg, the CEO of Verizon at the time, saying, I know that the FCC is taping this, but I don't mind saying I know that this is being taped, but that the FCC is butt stupid on this issue. And I never thought I would hear the CEO of Verizon say something like that. And then also the time that Michael Dell, someone asked him about acquisitions and Dell's attitude towards acquisitions, and he said, I prefer to acquire my competitors one customer at a time.
These people are competitive. I think that goes naturally. It's hand in hand with innovation. But our namesake, Churchill, was also a competitor. He had a famous quote. He said, "You have enemies. That's good. That means you stood up for something sometime in your life." We have another clip from a highly competitive person who happens to be hosting the America's Cup right now.
The guys say, "Oh, it's in the cloud." Well, what is that? Then you say, "Are we dead?" Oh, yeah, we're dead. If there's no hardware or software in the cloud, we are so screwed. But it's not water vapor. All it is a computer attached to a network. What are you talking about?
The longer version of that's been viewed, I think, a couple 100,000 times on YouTube.
But the secret of innovation is not that it just comes from competition, but it also comes from great enthusiasm. It's the juxtaposition of previously unconnected ideas. And I'm proud to be a member of the Churchill Club because where else do you see that juxtaposition of business, of commerce, of technology, of media, and of everything else? We're lucky to be here.
Yeah, one of the people that we're really proud, obviously, with, Churchill is a great namesake and a great inspiration. But, one of the juxtapositions that we really enjoyed recently was the combination of two very distinguished people, James Cameron and Eric Schmidt. And their interesting conversation, very unscripted, very open, and let's see that.
I was surprised that roughly 97% of the ocean is completely unmapped.
Yeah.
There are roughly 1 million mountains that we know exist.
This must drive you crazy.
So, the other thing one of the things that Churchill said is that courage is what it takes to stand up and speak. It's also courage is what it takes to sit down and listen. So thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to share a couple of the great moments of the last 25 years of the Churchill Club. And with that, we've got a wonderful thing. It's the great-grandson of Winston Churchill with a greeting for all of us, and then the program will commence.
Enjoy the evening.
Churchill would be amazed and fascinated by the new and better world that you in this room are envisioning and dedicating your lives to creating. My great-grandfather greatly valued those who thought outside the box. Churchill said, "It is rash to set limits on progress." A man who had maintained at Queen Victoria's Jubilee that within 50 years one would fly the Atlantic in a matter of hours would have risked being certified and locked up. Yet we have seen this happen. He knew that the only way to gain the greatest edge over the competition was to think differently, faster, and more innovatively than the rest. To the Churchill Club in particular, I want to congratulate you for 25 years of faithfully prodding a free and high-quality exchange of ideas and facilitating meetings and relationships to encourage innovation and all the good things that can ensue. I know that your awards tonight are all about inspiring others by highlighting excellence and remarkable achievements. I can relate, having been so inspired by my great-grandfather that I personally could choose no other path than to dedicate my own life to promoting his legacy, values and leadership skills. My conviction is that this will make the world a better place. And I know from talking with Karen Tucker, your CEO, that these values, morals and sentiments are alive and well at the Churchill Club, which I am confident the rest of my family as well sincerely appreciate. In keeping with the themes of your awards, if you were conversing with my great-grandfather today about innovation, he would likely tell you about the idea of the floating piers that we used during the Second World War, particularly useful at the beaches of Normandy. If you spoke of social benefit, his response might be to tell you a bit about the 1930s, to tell you all the warnings that he gave of Adolf Hitler and all the opportunities that we missed because it wasn't seen as a social benefit or indeed a political benefit to stop Adolf Hitler in his tracks before the start of the Second World War. If you brought up the topic of collaboration, I feel sure that my great-grandfather's comments would veer towards the special relationship that he and President Roosevelt created between our two great nations. Finally, if you asked him about leadership, the very essence of which he embodied, I believe he might say, have a broad view, large principles, a good heart, high aims, and a firm faith. Thank you for including me in your special celebration tonight. I look forward to meeting you and speaking with you in person in Silicon Valley soon. Meanwhile, I send you my congratulations to the winners of the Churchill Club Awards, and again to the Churchill Club on the occasion of its 25th anniversary. My great-grandfather famously once said, "Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. So please, keep innovating and pushing forward. Thank you again. God bless you all. Good night."
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming CEO of the Churchill Club, Karen Tucker.
Hi, thank you so much. This is a happy and proud occasion as we present the first annual Churchill Club Awards, and we believe a fitting way to celebrate a significant milestone. The program was created with the help and collaboration of many people, in this case about 400 in all. And our board, in particular, Michael Moon of the Moon Agency, staff, members, volunteers, all participated. Our Academy submitted hundreds of nominations and votes, and McKinsey Global Institute was especially influential. From them, we learned that awards can be a powerful mechanism to inspire positive change, such as innovation and economic growth, and this is our aim. I know we will all be inspired tonight by the comments and the stories of the 4 amazing honorees whose contributions have changed the world. I especially want to thank our member and partner Shell, the innovation champion of this program. We know from working with them already how deeply the people there care about the 4 themes of our awards: innovation, collaboration, leadership, and social benefit. Please help me thank Shell for their support. Accenture, KPMG, and Nair & Company are our presenting award sponsors. Thank you so much, too. And our Inspiration Leader supporting sponsors are Fenwick & West, SRI International, Studio 22 Design, and Silicon Valley Bank. Thank you. Finally, I simply must acknowledge the magical Churchill Club team. Jenny, Marcia, Matthew, Kathy. I knew I was going to do this. I told them, Danae, Patty, you are truly amazing. Thank you. It's a big honor to have Geoffrey Moore with us as our Master of Ceremonies. Geoffrey is a legend in the industry and really requires no introduction whatsoever. There is no one more recognized worldwide for his unique abilities to understand and capitalize on disruptive technologies. He is certainly one of the Churchill Club heroes. Please give your warmest Churchill Club welcome to Geoffrey Moore.
Yeah, it's good to see a CEO cry, you know? And not because they had an analyst report, but because they actually care, right? You know, I was thinking about the Churchill Club and this role. To me, the club stands for a form of discourse that is civic and civil and lively and interesting. And I thought, God, that's so last century, Geoffrey. And it's not last century. It's actually about 3 centuries ago. This discourse began in the salons of France. And it crossed the English Channel, and it became part of the coffee house tradition in England, the Spectator and Addison and Steele and those folks. And they became part of the club tradition. Then it crossed the Atlantic, and it became part of a kind of a citizen club tradition in the 19th century, the 18th and 19th century. Ben Franklin and then in the 19th century, the metaphysical clubs and then the transcendentalists and all these interesting, and this quality of conversation keeps going on. In my own life, I think I first got exposed to about the family dinner table, frankly, but then at liberal arts seminars, I was a liberal arts student, and that quality of dialogue, that ability to engage and explore and see all around a problem, it's very, very fundamental to being a citizen. And we live in a time right now where it's at risk. The dialogue in our country, this is what makes me cry, it's not at the quality it needs to be. And in fact, it's too much propaganda and ideology, it's too many sound bites, it's too much staying on message, it's too many snarky remarks. It's not the right quality of dialogue. And so what the Churchill Club for me stands for is setting the tone and setting that quality of dialogue. And every time I've been at a Churchill Club event, it's met that standard. And I just think we just need to continue to promulgate that going forward because it's really, really important for our society. Now, to do that, you have to have a topic. It's a rule. You can't just sort of talk, right? Well, actually, if you're Irish, you can, but that's a different story. So tonight, we have a really, really special occasion because we have 4 awards tonight, and each one is an occasion to talk about a performance and a set of issues that created excellent performance. We have 4 award-winning people. So the way that the ceremony is going to work tonight is we're going to have an awards ceremony. We're going to have people come up. There's an award presenter. There'll be an award presented. There'll be a photo opportunity. But then you see these white chairs over here. We're going to try to take a few minutes. We don't really have enough time to dig into any of these really deeply. We're going to try to take 8 to 10 to 12 minutes to at least have the beginning of a Churchill Club dialogue with each of these 4 award winners, to try to get dig a little bit underneath what was the innovation that made this award possible, and what can we learn about innovation and leadership as we do this. So the 4 awards you're going to hear. The first one's called the Game Changer Award, and I'll bring up somebody to do that immediately. And its focus is on innovation. How does innovation change the game? And then there's a Legendary Leader Award, and that's about leadership. And how does leadership, just personal leadership, change the quality of an outcome? And then there's going to be an interesting one around collaboration. And collaboration is kind of one of my favorite awards because we're very competitive, and competitiveness and collaboration sometimes butt heads with each other. But what is absolutely unique about this valley is the relationships and the webs of trust among people who compete with each other are remarkable. And so as a result, we get stuff done and stuff happens here at a speed that nobody else in the world seems to be able to match, because we can both compete and collaborate in the same spirit of just taking it forward, of innovating forward. So there's a collaboration award called the Magical Team Award. It's going to be very interesting. And then we're going to close with a Social Benefit Award. It's a Global Benefactor Award. And one of the things that's been true of this valley from the beginning, but I think there's a wonderful, wonderful streak of altruism that's run in and out of this valley. Sometimes in the heights of bubbles, it gets lost in all the stock price stuff. But it comes back, and it comes back with every generation. And the power of of this valley linked to a nonprofit model is absolutely extraordinary. And we're going to have an example of that we're going to talk about tonight. So it's going to be, and we'll still get you out of here by 9 o'clock or before. Okay, so you'll be able to get home. So with that, I want to kick this thing off. Our first award of the evening is the Game Changer Award. So let me invite Tim Zanni of KPMG to the stage to present this award. Tim, come on up. Here you go. Thank you, please.
Well, thank you, Geoffrey. It's great to be here tonight. Let me move to the audience participation part of the evening. And I've got some lights staring in my face, but I'm going to try to see this a little bit. So I'm going to ask you a question, and I'd love to see a raise of hands. So first of all, how many of you drive a Cadillac? Okay. How many of you drink Coke on a daily basis? Okay, a few more hands. How many of you had Kellogg's Corn Flakes for breakfast this morning? Okay. Now, I think all of us would agree, and recently there was a study that showed the top 50 brand names of all time. And Cadillac Coke and Kellogg's Corn Flakes were part of that iconic group. And I think back in their day, they were all game changers in some way, shape, or form in their industry. Let me ask you one more question. How many of you have a Facebook page? That's what I thought. An iconic brand today, a game changer today. And we at KPMG are so proud to be the presenting sponsor for the Game Changer Award, presented to the company with indispensable technology and business innovation. The spirit of the award is you changed how things are done and viewed, and there's no going back. The 2001 Churchill Club Game Changer Award winner is Facebook. Please welcome Katie Middick of Facebook and Margaret Wenmakers of Andreessen Horowitz, who will join the conversation on stage with Katie.
The awkward silence for the photos.
You'll post that on Facebook, right?
There you go.
And no tweeting. Hi, so I'm Margaret Wenmakers with Andreessen Horowitz. I'm a partner there, and I am here to congratulate Katie and Facebook for winning this wonderfully deserved award. I have a couple of connections to Katie. She's a friend of mine. That counts for one. But I also used to run the Outcast agency, and so we watched Facebook grow from a college campus phenomenon to the home for 750 million people online around the world, which is, I think, an outstanding achievement. And now at Andreessen Horowitz, I'm a delighted investor. So With that, I also want to say I think it's wonderful that you are accepting the award on behalf of Facebook, because Katie is a game changer in her own right, one of the few female executives in the Valley to have founded companies, have created products, have had meaningful roles at all kinds of scales at companies in the Valley. So congrats, Katie, and congratulations, Facebook.
Thank you, and on behalf of Facebook, everyone at Facebook, thank you so much. We're very honored by this award, so thank you.
So game-changing, what does that mean? And how come Facebook was able to pull it off? Because there were a number of players back in the day that were all vying for that spot.
Yep. So game-changing to us is about really a step function in the experience, about changing things in a way that you can't imagine going back to the way it was. So for Facebook, that's really about connecting and sharing online with your authentic identity, with like who you really are, your real identity. Before Facebook, you weren't Margaret, I wasn't Katie online.
I could be a dog.
You could be a dog. And you are represented by whatever collection of numbers and letters you chose at that time and with that community to represent yourself. But now, today, because I'm Katie and you're Margaret and we're friends and we can connect, I can discover really exciting things. I can learn more about you because of the comment that you made on an article. Mm-hmm. I can keep up with your family because of the photos that you post. I can discover a new restaurant by virtue of where you go and what you do. So it's fundamentally changed the internet experience for all of us. It turns out that at the nodes in this network, this great network that we call the internet, there are actually people. It's not computers, it's people. And that game-changing idea that really was Mark's vision when he started the company at Harvard, the same vision when he opened it up to the rest of the world years later, the same vision that captivates all the people that I work with today until I got here, is a really fundamentally different idea about how we'll all behave and exchange on the internet.
And I think one of the big surprises was that people want to share who they are with their friends in a very big way. And I think Facebook has sort of paved the way, not by focus group, but by showing, here's what people really want to do. How do you think Facebook got to that, or Mark got to that, and then how do you keep plugging away? Because there are several game changers in that company. It's a company. It has 750 million people. It's also a platform. It does all kinds of things. So how do you keep that going while all the way staying core to the mission?
So it's a great question. Obviously, Mark had a game-changing vision, but at the end of the day, executing on that vision was going to take a lot more than Mark.
Right.
And so building the right culture and attracting the right people was a big part of making the company successful. The people at Facebook, I work with 3,000 people who are captivated by the mission and obsessed about the product. We think about the product as fundamentally the way that people experience us and who we are, and experience the vision of Facebook and what the opportunities are. And we iterate a lot. We fundamentally believe it's about putting a product out there. We can all sit around and talk about ideas and talk about products, but actually getting it out there, getting people using it, is really how we get ideas and products to take flight. Our famous hackathons are these monthly, monthly all-nighters that we spend as a company, and everybody does it. It doesn't matter if you're in engineering or you're in product management or you're in finance. Everyone is excited to spend their night thinking about how they can bring those ideas to life and get them to take flight.
That's amazing. So you get the finance people to go participate really in the hackathon.
They do. They absolutely do.
Wow.
Great things have happened because of it.
That's pretty cool. And I think you've also, so let me ask you the question versus trying to answer it. When companies come along that change the game, like Facebook or Apple, and there's many other examples, I think they have an impact, obviously, on their customers, like the people who use Facebook, and there are many stories, and if you want to share some, that's great. I think for the Valley and for this community, it's also had an impact on Silicon Valley. What do you think that impact has been?
Yeah, I think certainly Facebook as a successful startup that has grown and had the kind of impact that we've been able to have in creating the tools and the capabilities for all of these people to connect is an example of how a simple, but powerful idea can come to life and really take an entire valley with it, and then some. I think our platform in particular is a great example of where we don't believe that we can or that we should create all the experiences that are going to be enabled by social and by the connections that people have actually made. And so we provide the tools and the capabilities to other businesses, to other companies, to developers to participate in this fundamental shift that's happening from kind of the what of the internet, a bunch of documents connected where as an anonymous person you go and search and get what you need, to an internet that's fundamentally about people and discovery. And that transition from the what to the who is something that is bigger than us. And so providing that platform and providing those capabilities is a way for us to be able to engage the rest of the world, quite frankly, in the mission. And I think is the way that we think about the ability to capitalize on the size and scale of that opportunity.
And we heard about Churchill, and we've heard about the mission of the club, and I think to some degree you put that on steroids without taking away from the personal connection that still have to happen, because there's a reason why we're all in this room tonight, right? But there's that happening. What do you think? Do you think the Valley has become more experimental as a result of Facebook's? So Facebook leans way in, right? It experiments with, people's stomach for privacy, certain products, all kinds of things. Do you think other people are following suit, and are there any examples?
Yes, certainly when you're breaking new ground, there's certainly, different experiences and opportunities and experiments. And I think this comes back to that culture I was talking about iteration, and about putting things out in the market and seeing how they're received and iterate on them and going back and figuring out how it works. And that has, we've certainly fostered that with our developer community, and we certainly see, wild experimentation happening with all of them. Also, pushing the boundaries and trying to figure out what this really means. I don't think fundamentally any of us, really understand what it means to have nearly 1 billion people in the world connected to other people that they care about and things that they care about. And so really the experimentation is so critical. And the companies that are experimenting, particularly with social, I think are really taking our lead in terms of the opportunities to put things out there and see what happens.
And so if Facebook looks at, okay, so it's about the who, not the what, and it's about the social connections. What do you think are the sort of what buckets does Facebook look at as what do people want to do? We all know about photos, and you should talk about the photo example, which I think is really powerful as both an example of experimentation and then some.
Yeah, so I think there's the opportunity to enable people to really express themselves and tell their story. We all have a story. We're all very different. We all, in the course of our offline lives, actually tell those stories in every big way and every small way. When we intersect each other at the water cooler, when we have dinner in the evening, we're telling our stories and sharing with each other. And so that's fundamentally what we're enabling online, is the ability to do that. That's a really powerful part of what you can do. Certainly photos, photos is a great example of that self-expression, and also I think of our product, our probably product philosophy around keeping small entrepreneurial teams, but holding them to really big impact. Photos is a great example. When we introduced photos, there was, tens of photo companies, tens of photo sharing companies that existed. They had tons of features. We put 2 engineers on photos and said, you got to come up with something relatively quick. Our users, they want to share photos. We can see it. They're changing their profile photo on a regular basis.
So that was the indicator?
They want to express themselves. So we need to give them better capabilities to do that. And when you tell 2 engineers they got to build a product that's uber successful, and you have no time, you have no people, they had to distill it down to that one single feature. We couldn't have all the other features. We had no high-res photos. We had no download it and put it in a pretty book. We had none of those things, but we had tagging. And it was like the single feature
The Who.
that made all the difference. It was all about the Who.
Right.
And that created an amazing photos experience that those of you who have Facebook profiles have certainly experienced, where people can upload photos and they can travel to the relevant people to see them and experience them, and has fundamentally made us the largest photos experience you can find on the internet.
What's your personal favorite Facebook moment? When did you join? Like, what's your personal favorite Facebook moment?
My favorite Facebook moment was actually before I showed up at the company, and was that magical moment when, in 2007, I reached kind of my 40 to 50 friends connected on Facebook, and realized
How many are
the
there
power
now?
of,
Sorry, I gotta ask.
I don't, probably around 1,000 or something like that. When you work at Facebook, you have a lot of Facebook friends.
Right, it's 3,000 right there.
But it was like that magical moment when I realized what was really going on, when I had a representation of different communities that I'm involved in, people I went to high school with, people I went to college with, people who live in my neighborhood, people I work with, people I had worked with, that I really realized the opportunity to discover new things from them, to keep in touch with them in a way that, that just wasn't possible before.
And we don't have a lot of time, but talk a little bit about the global footprint. I'm not sure, I think people might be thinking that Facebook is still in the US. Talk a little bit about that, because it's certainly not the case.
70% of our user base, which we've publicly announced, we have over 750 million users connected on Facebook, is outside of the United States. And that's usually surprising to people, because they think about it as a
college
United
campus
States
thing. Still.
Exactly. And I think that just speaks to the power of people, the increasing globalization and people connecting across the globe and on the internet.
That's a nice network effect right there.
Yeah.
All right, I guess we'll leave it at that. Thank you,
Great.
Katie,
Thank
and
you.
congratulations.
Thank you, Margaret. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to our second award. Our second award is called the Legendary Leader Award. And to present that, I'd like to welcome to the stage John Walsh of Accenture, who will be presenting. John?
Before I start, I'd actually like to start by congratulating Karen Tucker and the Churchill Club for continuing to put on these events and bringing together such inspirational leaders for all of us to take advantage of. And looking at this, I know when we talked about it in the board meeting, you said it was going to be special. This is solid bronze. This is really a work of art, handcrafted, beautiful. Accenture is very proud to be part of this organization and part of this event. And we're excited to be presenting the Legendary Leader Award this evening. The Legendary Leader Award is about inspirational leadership, innovation, and contributions to others' success. When the Churchill Club asked its Academy to nominate honorees for this award, we invited them to identify people out there who see a brand new future. People who frame industry and societal needs and envision unique, groundbreaking solutions to some of the world's hardest problems. At the Churchill Club and Accenture, we believe that the greatest leaders are also great mentors, with unique ability to recognize, develop, and catalyze teams to achieve unprecedented results. We ask the Academy to nominate legendary leaders who have enormous impact through both their visionary leadership and their uncanny ability to inspire and motivate their teams to deliver revolutionary breakthroughs. Continuing a theme of the evening, how many people out there have a PayPal account? How many people have an electric car and have a Tesla electric car, or have signed up for a Model S besides me? Oh, there's more than I thought. But in this audience, I would expect nothing less. And how many people want to go to the moon? There we go. So, as a Churchill Club board member, it is my distinct privilege to present the 2011 Legendary Leader Award to Elon Musk. Please welcome Elon to the stage. We'll also invite Steve Jurvenson to come up, who will be conducting a short interview. Congratulations.
This is a very tiny hat.
Explorer in the Amazon. I dare you to try. Great, we'll have a seat. Fantastic. Well, this is going to be fun. This is one of my favorite topics, one of my favorite people. In the spirit of full disclosure, I should mention who I am. Steve, can you hear me okay? A little louder. I am a venture capitalist. I work at a firm called Draper Fisher Jurvetson. And in the spirit of full disclosure, I should mention I'm on the board of SpaceX and Tesla. And then if we also include SolarCity and Everdream, we have invested 3 times now in companies that Elon has personally co-founded, and twice in companies run by his cousins. So I think it's safe to say anything the extended family does, we're all over it. It's a pretty amazing story. I first met him in 1995 when he arrived in Silicon Valley for the first time and was looking to start Zip2. He came via Pennsylvania, via Canada, originally an immigrant from South Africa. And that was his first success, sold to Compaq. He then went on to co-found the companies that I mentioned, some of which we'll get into in the Q&A later, and has had an amazing tear at it. If you step back, it's quite remarkable that the first viable production electric car of the modern era, thanks to Elon, inspiring other car companies to follow that lead. The first company that has a successful alternative to the space shuttle, right? The entire US space program, it seems, is pivoting on whether SpaceX can fill that gap. You look at SolarCity, one of the largest, if not the largest solar installer in America. Again, the company that Elon founded. You know, at some point, when you think about the industries he's gone up against, financial institutions, the automotive industry, the military-industrial complex, as an immigrant from South Africa, it's kind of mind-boggling to think how one could do that. At any moment, you expect him to say, I am Iron Man. And then you realize the movie was based on him, so it just gets more interesting. I think it's interesting. Every entrepreneur wants to change the world. We heard about game-changing just a moment ago. But Elon asks, why stop at the world, right? I mean, we got a lot more to do than just fix this planet. So as you've heard, the Academy nominated each of these winners tonight. I think it's worth mentioning that hundreds of people contributed their thoughts and written in ballots as to why a certain person should win. I thought I'd read you a couple of quotes from the nominees. The first, Elon Musk is probably the most diversely successful repeat entrepreneur in the world. Nobody compares, revolutionizing the stodgy industries of banking, cars, and rockets. Not even Steve Jobs is that diverse. Or another person, an incredible serial entrepreneur who does not know how to take can't be done as an answer. I also like a quote from Elon recently on the currently syndicated Bloomberg TV profile. It's been an hour-long program you can watch on him, where he says, an engineer is the closest thing to a magician that exists in the real world. So with that thought in mind, I'd like to start with that magic. And what motivated you to build the companies, the ones that you're currently the CEO of, let's say SpaceX and Tesla?
Sure. Well, when I was in college, I just thought about what are the 3 areas that would most affect the future of the world. And by the way, I apologize for not being at my best. I'm quite ill right now. And the areas that I thought would most affect the world were the internet, sustainable energy, and space exploration, particularly making life multiplanetary. And I didn't expect that I'd be involved in all 3 areas, but as it turned out, I've been able to. But it's really not, none of the companies have really been from the perspective of what's like the rank ordered, you know, best return on investment. Sorry. But I think it's generally true that if you solve a problem that is important to the world, then you end up creating a valuable company. Sure.
So tell us just a bit, for those who don't know, what most excites you today about SpaceX and Tesla, for example.
Okay. Well, at SpaceX, we're getting ready to do a mission to dock with the space station. That's probably going to launch in December or January. Things got a little messed up because the Russian Soyuz failed recently, so that kind of threw the schedule for a bit of a loop. But yeah, we're going to be do the first commercial docking with the space station in history, hopefully, in a few months. We also have the Falcon Heavy development, which is going to be the largest rocket in the world, more than twice the payload capability of the space shuttle. And there's some secret things I wish I could talk about, but I can't. For Tesla, the big thing that Tesla's working on is the Model S, which is an all-electric sedan with a range of over 300 miles. I really think our goal with the Model S is to make it not the best electric car, but the best car of any kind. We've got a big event coming up on October 1st for all the reservation holders of the Model S. At our Fremont factory, we bought the NUMMI factory from Toyota and GM. It's an awesome factory, actually. So we're going to let people tour the factory and see all the cool manufacturing equipment. I really like manufacturing, by the way. I think it's really super cool.
100% in America too, which is
manufacturing is really interesting.
So you've mentioned becoming a multi-planetary species with SpaceX and with Tesla, that all vehicles will eventually be electric, and that is a bold vision that you paint for the future, and was your founding vision.
I think it's totally obvious, but
totally obvious. just enlightening the world. Do you think the employees that join, and we switch to topics of leadership and mentorship, do you think everyone who joins SpaceX and Tesla shares that view? Is it something that is sort of the guiding light for them?
I think a lot of people do. Probably most people, I think. I mean, the companies are getting sort of big-ish now. I mean, well, actually all three companies, SolarCity, Tesla, and SpaceX, are around 1,500 people and growing quite quickly. So they're collectively approaching 5,000 people. So I'm not quite as in touch with what everyone thinks as I used to be, but I think it does matter if you're trying to attract the world's best talent, to have a goal that is world-changing. So, because I think if you can combine, I think there's sort of three things. If you can combine having a work environment where people really look forward to coming to work in the morning, it's really intrinsically interesting. That there can be the second thing, that there can be a really significant financial outcome for them, buy stock options, that kind of thing. But then the third thing is, if you succeed in the thing you're doing, is it going to matter to the world? Is it really going to make a difference? And I think the third item is very important for the best talent.
Do you find that in going against stodgy industries that have been fairly stable for generations, that's easier to recruit some of the best and brightest around that theme? Versus, let's say, another internet company going against other internet companies.
I find recruiting the best talent is always tough. I mean, that's really the limiter I find on company growth. It's getting easier now with SpaceX and Tesla, because they're reaching a level of maturity where it doesn't sound completely insane. And in the beginning, it just sounded completely insane because that nobody ever really created a private rocket company. If you say to somebody, well, we're going to start a rocket company, and like, well, what sort of aerospace things have you done before? Well, nothing. What sort of physical objects have you made before? Nothing. Who are your competitors? Well, let's see, domestically it's Boeing and Lockheed. Internationally it's the Chinese government, the Russian government, and the European collective government. Like, all highly subsidized. This doesn't sound like a winning proposition. So it was definitely difficult to recruit people in the beginning. It's gotten a lot easier now. I think it's gotten to the point where, for Tesla and SpaceX and SolarCity, where a lot of the best talent in the industry actually wants to work at those three companies.
Right. What is your favorite time at work? What gets you most excited?
Well, the thing I enjoy the most is engineering and design meetings, just sort of working collaboratively with the lead engineers on a project to come up with something new and interesting, that is meaningfully better than something in the past. That's my favorite activity.
And you're chief architect at Tesla and fundamentally as well at SpaceX.
Yeah.
Another question that sort of begs, of course, and the Steve Jobs analogy comes to mind. when he was running Pixar and Apple jointly as CEOs both, is how do you lead and mentor Pan Company? And you also helped spawn and get Solar City started as well. When you have intermittent contact like that, is there anything unique that comes to mind, or any special thoughts you have on how you've managed to pull that off, other than just being overwhelmed by the whole thing?
I was trying to think of some sort of pithy advice, and I don't really have any, or nothing that I can think of. I mean, the way I think of a company is like the outcome of a company is the vector sum of the people within it. Mm-hmm. And so you want to make sure people are kind of pointed in the right direction and that they're able to work to their maximum potential. And so when I have meetings, that's kind of what I think about. I just, yeah.
And do you find that others, recognizing that you're, spanning companies, naturally fill in a way that, in an operational sense or a day-to-day sense that?
Yeah, I guess it seems to work. Yeah. It was very, very tough for a while there because before the executive teams were filled out, because I was, in addition to being CEO, I was actually also doing a bunch of other roles. That was very, very strenuous. But now we've got really great teams at both SpaceX and Tesla and Solar City, so it's much easier.
Right. How about from a personal level? If you look back, there's a lot of people here in the audience who marvel probably at the folks who are coming on stage today. And I guess, is there any reason you think you've had so many entrepreneurs in your extended family? Is this just something you were taught, or how did that work out?
Well, I should point out my extended family is quite big. Not all of them are
so
successful
the
entrepreneurs.
Yes. Statistically, it's just.
I have a lot of cousins. You have.
Haven't met all the deadbeats. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Only a few of them should be running companies. I mean, Lyndon and Pete are particularly awesome. They're the co-founders and CEO and president of Solar City. Yeah, I don't know how it worked out that way.
Was there anything your parents did that parents in the audience should emulate? Because to be fair, his brother has also started companies.
Yeah.
Zip2, they co-founded together. He's got a couple other businesses he's done on the side. One was recently acquired, so it's not like he's any slouch.
No, Kimmel's really good. I had a terrible upbringing. So I can only think of counterexamples.
That's going to be very encouraging for the rest of us.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, the thing I had a lot of adversity growing up, and the thing I worry about with my kids is not enough adversity. I don't know if that makes a difference or not.
There's definitely something about the immigrant mentality that we see playing out time and time again in Silicon Valley. So, I guess lastly, if there's anything you think about when you think about leadership, I wonder if it feels different to you now with, in a sense, a portfolio play of 3 or 4 different companies going on versus if you can think back to the Zip2 days when there was just one activity, just one startup. Your livelihood was based on it. You left an academic program at Stanford to pursue your dream. Although it wasn't heady times, it was the dot-com boom, so it's hard to compare apples to apples. But does it feel different to you now, either through experience, through diversification? How do you compare now versus then?
Well, I mean, certainly Silicon Valley was, I think, a fair bit different, and I was very naive and much stupider than I am now. In fact, I cringe at the stupid things that I did back then. So I wish I could go back and sort of give myself, slap on the face and say, hey, you're being stupid. It's like as you get older, your perspective just broadens and you sort of understand more of why things are the way they are. So back then I was just sort of working crazy hours. I literally would just sleep under my desk just to avoid going home, because that would just take time. I was just super focused on one thing. and trying to make up for the mistakes that are made by just working really, really hard. Yeah. Sorry, I wish I wasn't, my head's somewhat cloudy because of being ill, but yeah.
Well, no, that's fantastic. I know he has the flu, so this is a real tribute that he made it here tonight to be with us. And I think he's just a hero. So thank you very much, Elon.
On behalf of the club.
Thank you.
Please, go ahead. Wow, wow. It's kind of a very special evening. Okay, we're going to move on to our third award. And our third award is called the Magical Team Award. Sean Nair, who's one of the sponsors here of Nair & Company, will present it, and I'd like to welcome Dr. Nair to the stage. Sean?
Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome today. I think as we saw from the game changer discussions, there seems to be two kind of magical components for a highly successful company. There needs to be an individual with a concept or an idea that is different or new or going to lead to something that will be perceived differently by a marketplace. And then there is a team that has to implement this particular idea. The company would not be a success without the idea, and the idea would not be a success without a team. So essentially, when companies have a product, they often need to demonstrate that the product or the service has got international appeal before they can actually be perceived as being successful in terms of either doing an IPO or an acquisition or being acquired or whatever. Going abroad and essentially figuring out how to do it at a business level is relatively easy, but there are many risks of actual execution. At Nair & Co, we came up with a new business model for actually minimizing and controlling these risks. And then our teams of accountants and HR specialists and attorneys, who are our engineers, if you like, figured out a way of rolling this thing out. As a result, we went from 2 people in a room about 11 years ago to looking very much like our clients, many of whom are very top quality companies with offices globally. So I think a lot of what was being said today kind of I was empathetic with. I'm a slightly unusual person in that accountants are supposed to be kind of dull, and yet I'm really not an accountant. I'm a kind of small-time entrepreneur. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to warmly welcome the Microsoft Kinect Xbox 360 team here today as the winners of this award. And in particular, I want to welcome Todd Holmdahl and Michal Boudiou. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Apologies if not. Onto the podium to warmly welcome them for their well-deserved award. Thank you.
Yeah. That's yours. Okay. So, our tallest award winner tonight. No, I'm sorry, please. Have a seat, Todd, please.
Sure got my head?
He did. All right. So it's my pleasure to spend a little time with this team. The Microsoft Kinect, for those, just in case you don't know what it is, it's a device that was originally designed for a gaming console that allows you to play the game with no controller. Your body is your controller. Is that a fair way to say it?
That's correct.
And so, and I'm fascinated by the device, and I was going to spend 14 minutes talking about the device. But this is an award actually about teamwork. And so I'm going to kind of try to take you guys through a little bit, some questions around the teaming. But to start with, and Todd, maybe you can kick this off. Who was on the team? I mean, when you think of this team, kind of take us through the structure of that.
Well, there was a lot of people on the team. We worked with people outside of Microsoft who had some really interesting ideas about the hardware. We worked with people inside Microsoft in a variety of different places. There were software people who were helping us develop the software that allowed us to do the skeletal tracking. We worked with our research partners, Mihai's group, and they helped us in skeletal tracking and voice and identification. And then of course, we had the experienced people who put the experiences on top of that. And this is, when we look at this product, it could only be done if somebody had access to all the third-party people outside, the software people, the research people, the experienced people, the hardware people, in order to bring that all together.
Yeah, this thing synthesizes an amazing number of disciplines. If you just really kind of step back from it, there's a visual sensing stuff. I think the PrimeSense people contribute significant technology. There's audio that you can actually talk to this thing. Skeletal tracking. It turns out that machines figure out your skeleton. And did you like show them a lot of people to do that, or how did that work?
Well, Mihai did most of the work on this one, so I'll let him.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. So one of the things you do with this device is you play with it, and for the game interaction to work, the device has to know what you're doing, where you are in the room. It works with multiple people as well. But the question came: how do you teach something which is a computer essentially to recognize humans? That's a very difficult problem because humans come in various shapes. They dress differently. Also, this has to work with this furniture and pets and strange illumination and who knows what. So the solution was actually to do it the same way humans do it. So how do you recognize a human? Well, essentially when you're a baby, you see a lot of humans around and you learn from examples. So, this is mama, this is daddy, this is mama's hand, this is my nose, this is the eyes. So we use the similar process, and we showed the computer a lot of examples, a lot of labeled examples of humans in various positions and shapes, and the computer synthesized a brief description of what a human is.
Wow. So that's one part of the team. So, and I just get this. So all of a sudden, because I love watching the baby. You have a little baby in your family, and the first time your baby sees his hands, what the hell was that? It's, whoa! It moved, came back again. So that's just one dimension of teaching a computer how to have a visual cortex and a recognition. So you had that team, okay? You had some other science teams from PrimeSense. That's two teams. Keep going.
So we had of course the team that helped us on the skeletal tracking. We had hardware engineers from PrimeSense who helped us create the 3D depth sensor. We had a voice team that did all the voice recognition. That was a combination of our research partners and production people. We had an identification team. You can walk into a room and this is a product that can identify you. That was another collaboration between us and a research team in China. Of course, you had the software people that had to put it all together and make it a real product. You had to have all the hardware people that work in my organization that had to take this thing that cost $15,000, $20,000 when we first saw it and make it cost so that you could sell it for $150. Really drive the price down. And then the thing that really made it magical was we all worked together with the people who were actually designing the experiences. They knew exactly what this product could do, and they used the best attributes of the product in order to create the experiences.
So I counted 7 teams in 7 different disciplines. So it would be so easy to get lost in the fun house, right?
It was a lot of fun.
Right, yeah, I mean, I could see you said, 10 years later going, wow, we learned a lot, but how did it then come together in a product? What was kind of, so talk us about how that got orchestrated toward an actual product in the world.
I'll jump in. The thing that we did, we really tried to focus not on PowerPoints, but we had some initial experiences that we were showing people to get them to believe. And once people saw what we were trying to do, they started voting with their feet. They just started coming in and say, hey, I want to be part of this. I want to be involved in developing this product. And when you have people that are very passionate and really excited and really want to work on something, it makes the orchestration a lot easier.
People come together voluntarily.
People come together voluntarily. They, like Elon was saying, they work the long nights. They put in, they collaborate well because they can see the possibilities that this product could deliver. And so it made all the orchestration, easy. The program management was rather straightforward.
You've used the word experience, and you talked about user experience design. That does feel like something that, when I joined tech in the 80s and the 70s and 80s and the 90s, the tech experience itself from the user point of view was very abstract and not particularly engaging. That feels like a huge difference in this case. So how were you able to get experiences that really people could buy into that early?
Well, you use these terms. We had a couple of terms that we really started to focus on and teach the team about. One was, you are the controller, and the other was the only experience you need is life experience itself. So you didn't have to learn the 14 buttons that were on the controller. You could walk up, and if it was a driving game, you could just start driving. And we have kids, they're 5 and 6, and I don't think they'd ever driven, walk up and we're literally driving on simulated driving within 30 or 40 seconds. So that, those types of things, those types of experiences really resonated with a lot of people, and it made it easy to convey what we were trying to do.
So, Mihai, in terms of the scientists behind it, do you think that those prototype experiences had an impact on the productivity of the research teams?
Absolutely. So in fact, that's how I got sucked into this project. I was doing, run-of-the-mill research. Actually, I was working on cloud computing. I had worked for a while on cloud computing. And then I saw the demos that they gave at E3 publicly in 2009. And I was really excited about this project. And then a colleague comes and says, maybe you could help with this. And then I dropped everything I was doing and said, what can I do? Just show me. And they said, exactly, your expertise in cloud computing might be able to help because we have this massive data set we have to run through to train the system, and we have to do it quickly. So
it was a very cool computing problem, but it also had an emotional sort of appeal to it. You were engaged before, it kind of had you from hello, as it were. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For me, the biggest value in this is now I can finally explain to my son what I'm doing at work.
But it's so cool. But we're thinking about it, because the heart is part of the team, right? It's not just the head that's part of the team. So there's an invention phase going on here. It sounds like the invention phase was fascinating. And by the way, in corporations, there's lots of invention going on. The notion that there isn't a lot of innovation in large corporations is completely false. But there is a truth about large corporations, which is that they have an enormous difficulty. We call it crossing the chasm inside the belly of a whale. Because the whale has a digestive system that is working on the innovation even as you're trying to get it to scale. So you had this very exciting thing. I'm sure there were pragmatic people in the corporation going, well, but. So talk a little bit about the well, but.
Yeah, that was a really interesting part of the whole program. We started incubating in early 2008. We had convinced a lot of people by 2009. There was still a large group of engineers who thought we just couldn't do it. There were too many hurdles to overcome. We had some good leadership at the company, and we created this program called Everest to scale the mountain. We had issues with field of view, we had issues with voice recognition, we had issues with identity, we had issues with latency, and there was a very great engineer, software developer, Ben Kilgore, who took together a whole group of people, and his job was to scale Everest. Within a month or two, they were going to take a look at all of these different things that were really, we thought, were miracles that needed to happen to see if we could create something that could go into a product. And with the right direction and with the right people on it, a couple of months later, we came out and said, yeah, we could squint and we could see that this is possible, and this is something that can happen and that can go into a product and really impact a lot of people.
So, Mihai, were you skeptical? These are field of view, latency, voice recognition. These are problems that we've stubbed our toes on for a long time. Did you think you could get past them?
It definitely looked like magic. But I was confident in the part that I was an expert in, so I knew I could work on that.
Okay. You know, but we had we had Elon up here going, well, yeah, I think interplanetary, yeah, and you're going, what? You know, I'm going to take on China, Russia, block you. I mean, that's what this thing sounds like too. You called them miracles, and. Yep. You know, that cartoon that has the formula that in the middle says, and then a miracle happens here, right? And you had at least 4.
Well, unfortunately, we had people like really smart people like Mihai and other that we could direct to the problem and they could see what the outcome could be if we could figure it out. And again, they were very passionate and just really worked hard at making it happen.
So that's really cool. And now I think, so it feels to me like there's 2 danger phases you've gotten through. There's the danger phase which says, how in the world would this thing ever really get focused? Was there somebody who was, you had these principles, you are the controller, your life experience is all you need. Were you the champion of those principles personally? Somebody had to be championing those principles.
There were a number of us. I think there were 4 or 5 of us at the start. Okay. Alex Kipman, of course, Alon, who's in the room, Raghu, myself, all believed at the start.
Did you have to have a czar? You know, you look at a guy like Steve Jobs, and Steve is presented as a guy who is the ultimate arbiter of whatever it is. Yeah. Was there that kind of a person on this team?
I think our boss Don Matrick, he saw early on the potential and gave us a lot of air cover to go off and do this and continue to push it.
Well, that's kind of what I do. So the second thing you got past was the inherent. This just can't be done. Right. It just can't be done. And I love this notion of creating an Everest and just saying, okay, guys, you have to at least create a plausible scenario by which we can get from, this peak to that peak. There are other enemies, or not enemies, there are other obstacles in your way. It occurs to me that financial people might at some point come into your way.
I love accountants.
Well, exactly. And God bless Sean. Yeah. But so how did you deal with people going, now wait a minute, the numbers aren't adding up correctly?
Well, yeah, that's always a tough one. It's always tough to understand or know how many things you are going to sell of a new product. Again, having Don as a believer, he understood what it took to go into new markets and what it took to take risk. I think he provided a lot of air cover. And I do think when people started to see the experiences that we could deliver, it really resonates with a broad number of people. You didn't have to be a core gamer, a Halo first-person shooter to see that this could go into multiple areas, and it really started to, I think, resonate with everybody.
Do you think the Wii helped as a kind of a stepping stone to say, well, look, if that can change it, we can move in that direction, but with much more technology?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we did not want to do a knockoff of that. We wanted to be very disruptive, and to their credit, Nintendo had come out with a product that was very disruptive and a game changer. Last question on team, because
everything we've said so far is essentially around in service to a business unit at Microsoft. But this Kinectic thing has taken on a life of its own. Talk a little bit about other people that have been involved with this besides just the Microsoft game team.
Well, we've had the opportunity to put our own SDK out there. There's another SDK out there. People are building on top of this Kinect product, from automotive to medical to health. It really has captured the hearts and minds of a lot of developers and a lot of people developing experiences.
Go onto YouTube. There's a neurosurgeon on YouTube. He's got to manipulate the NeuroCAT scan or whatever it is of your brain in order while he's operating on you. But if he actually goes and touches a computer or a mouse, he's got to scrub up again. So he's got to do it again. Now he can stand in front of that computer and just do this and see it. And he's just beaming, because he's going, I can now operate with the information I need. So the way in which this team is touched, this is a team that is ever expanding. So it's another form of the magic. That's all the time we have for right now. Please join me in congratulating again the team from Microsoft. Todd, Mihai, thank you very much. Thank you. You really should check this thing out. It is absolutely amazing. Well, we're now down to the final award of the evening, and it's my personal privilege to introduce the Global Benefactor Award. This is the final award of the evening. The award is for irrepressible vision and positive impact on society. And the spirit of the award is thanks for thinking big, which, by the way, I think we've heard a lot of thinking big. It's a theme I want to come back to at the end in my closing remarks. But this particular award goes to an educator. Now, my first career was in education. I was an English professor and taught English for a number of years. And, you know, when you teach, the first thing you realize is kids want to learn. In fact, if you would just get out of their way, kids will learn, right? Now, they might learn some things you don't want them to learn, but they're very, very good at learning. And what you realize as an educator after a while is, man, we get in their way. We make education much more expensive, much harder, much less engaging than than nature would have if we just kind of done that. But if you get involved in the system, you look around, and after a while you think, yeah, but I'm not sure I know how to re-engineer this thing. I mean, there's a lot of Darwin selected for the system we have today, and although it's certainly far from perfect, it's there. But what you realize are a couple things. You realize that the key to great education is engagement. Not the teacher's engagement, the student's engagement, the learner's engagement, although the teacher often is the focus of that engagement. But and everybody's had experiences where you have gifted teachers in your life, and you've had a few of them, and they really have been transformative to you. But you've had a few of them. You didn't have a lot of them, okay? So there's that, but we know it exists, this magical capability to engage. And then the question is, how in the world would you scale that? How could you create engagement at scale? The kind of thing that Facebook has done. Facebook has created engagement at scale. Well, tonight's award winner has taken the technologies of Facebook and YouTube and Twitter. I mean, all these technologies are imminent in our valley. And he is a gifted, engaging teacher, but he's doing it at scale. And I want you to see a video, and I'm going to invite him up. This is a gentleman named Saul Khan. This is about the Khan Academy. Could you run the video that just kind of gives you a flavor of how Saul's stuff works, and then I'm going to ask him to come up and accept an award.
So the hypotenuse is now going to be 5. This animal's fossils are only found in this area of South America, a nice clean band here, and this part of Africa. We could integrate over the surface, and the notation usually is a capital sigma. National Assembly, they create the Committee of Public Safety, which sounds like a very nice committee. Notice this is an aldehyde, and it's an alcohol. Start differentiating into effector and memory cells. A galaxy. Hey, there's another galaxy. Oh, look, there's another galaxy. And for dollars is their $30 million plus the $20 million from the American manufacturer. If this does not blow your mind, then you have no emotion.
Would you please welcome to the stage Mr. Saul Khan. Come on over here. Hold it, Saul, we have a photo opportunity. Photo opportunity. Yeah. Okay, great. Okay. So how many people here, just to get like I said, how many people here have had any experience of the Saul Academy? Okay, yeah, more than eat cornflakes, drive Cadillacs, or drink Coca-Cola. Okay, I just want to kind of do that. Well, wow. Gosh, Saul, it's hard to know where to start. I think we have a little narrative. Briefly tell us how you got involved in this project, and kind of just I know you can be a long narrative, but
yes, it could be very long.
Short narrative.
No, it was 2004. I had just gotten married, and I had cousins visiting me in Boston, where I was working as an analyst at an investment firm at the time, and my cousin Nadia was having trouble with units. So I said, hey, when you go back to New Orleans, can I tutor you? So I started tutoring her when she went back on speakerphone and Yahoo Doodle and all the rest, and it worked out. She got over her hurdles, and I started tutoring her brothers. And the whole time I had another day job, and then I started tutoring a bunch of other cousins and family friends. It was free tutoring.
Are you a compulsive tutorer?
I am. I guess you. No, it was funny. You would call up people and you would say, "Hey, I know you haven't heard from me in a long time, and I'm sorry I didn't send you a Christmas gift, but can I tutor your kids?" And it was this. They thought something was up, something shady. But so that happened. I actually started writing a little software to quiz them first, but that was just to see what problems they were doing and making sure they mastered it. And then in 2006, I was actually just venting to a buddy, and I was saying, you know, I have all the software, it's really cool, and it's helping my cousins, but I'm getting a little frustrated with kind of the scaling aspect of it. Like even with 20 cousins, it was difficult to scale. And he said, you know, well, why don't you put some lectures on YouTube? And I said, no, that's for dogs on skateboards. That's not for serious. But I went home and I got over the idea that it wasn't my idea.
Which is difficult.
Which is difficult. And I tried it out, and you know, I joke, and some of y'all, you know, but it's true. The first feedback from my cousins was that they liked me better on YouTube than in person. And
were you doing from the very beginning the what's that tablet called?
Yeah, well, it was, so the very first tutoring sessions with Nadia were like, okay, how do we figure out how to do this? I got a speakerphone out, and we used Yahoo Doodle. And at first we did it with our mice, and it was very hard to write with that. And then I looked it up. I was like, oh, there are these pen tablet things. They're like $80. I got her one, I got me one, and then we were able to write properly. So then when we did our first, when I was going to make my first YouTube video, I kind of looked around. I was like, well, I have no video camera, and my cousins aren't paying me for this, so I'm not going to buy one. And so I said, well, it worked with Nadia, just seeing writing and hearing the voice. So why don't I just try that out so I used some free screen capture software, and I just started writing on a black background, and then I uploaded it on YouTube. And I still remember that first moment where it was like, I was even thinking about, oh, I don't want everyone to see this. It's kind of embarrassing and all the rest. And I was like, YouTube's like, you can either make it public or not. And I was like, oh, I'll make it public. And then people started watching.
People started watching, and they did start watching. So you were doing math, and you had, I don't know, how many tutoring lessons? Talk a bit about how this thing started to scale in terms of the number. Well, first of all, how long is a lesson? The typical lesson?
The lessons, and I give YouTube, if you go sign up YouTube right now and you're not a partner and all the rest, it's 10 minutes. It has to be 10 minutes. Otherwise, I remember I made a video that was like 12 minutes, and they said, no, you cannot upload this video. And I said, oh, I guess it has to be shorter.
Okay, so that's very cool. So there's clearly an idea about engagement in there. So you had making these less than 10-minute videos. So how many videos? Talk about, because how many videos exist today?
2,700.
2,700. Okay. And how many videos, what was the year of the first video, the year and month of the first video?
November 2006.
Okay, you are a compulsive tutor. I just want you to know. Okay, it's okay. If you raise your hand, there's 12 steps. Okay, so how did it, I mean, was it linear? Has it been exponential? What's been going on?
It's been, you know, it did become a bit of a goal and an adventure where, you know, I started making a few videos, my cousins, you know, units and basic algebra and all the rest. And it almost, you know, when I would show people at like dinner parties what I was up to, all my friends with MBAs, like, oh, this will never scale, content never scales, and all the rest. You should get other people to, you know, help with these videos. And
PowerPoint.
PowerPoint, and, you know, I was an MBA. I understood the principle of getting other people to do your work and all of the rest. But I said, no, but this isn't a business. I'm doing this for fun, and my cousins like it. You know, what's cool is that this could be used by my future children or their children. It's just like a neat thing. And look, there's other people on the internet who are finding value. Like, oh, well, it'll never scale. Content never scales. But I just kept going. And then after, like, I don't know, 60 or 70 videos, I was like, hey, that's algebra. That's kind of like, if you understand that, that's a good scaffold of algebra. And I was like, well, let me try trigonometry. Let me do trigonometry. Let me try calculus. And then it just got to be, well, let me try K through 12 mathematics. And then people say, oh, this works for math, but it'll never work for biology.
Right.
No. I said, well, let me try it out. And then, you know, 80 videos later, oh, that's AP biology kind of out of the way. So yes, it kind of just become, the more you move forward, you realize it isn't as intractable as people would have you believe it is.
80 videos times 10 minutes, 800 minutes basically is a college subject.
Yeah, that's about right.
Order of magnitude.
Order of magnitude. In fact, I think it's more than a college lecture because you can go, in terms of the actual teaching moments in a college lecture, because there's a lot of repetition, there's a lot of class overhead. Yeah, it's about
teachable. This engagement ties to teachable moments. Okay, now this is a social benefactor because if the VC were here, they say, well, how are you going to monetize this? Yes. So let's talk about when, because you must have had that thought at some point.
Yes, I had a mortgage.
So talk about the mortgages and monetization. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, you know, the thought process, it actually came to a head in about 2007, where it became clear that there was some traction here. I did get approached by some successful entrepreneurs and a few VCs who said, hey, we think something's here. Why don't we, you know, seed fund it? You can do this for a living. And I already got the fever that I wanted to do this, for a living. And the first conversation was really good. Oh, double bottom line, you know, we can make money and do good at the same time, and all of that type of thing. But by the second conversation, it wasn't so much fun. They're like, how about you continue to do this in algebra, and then that'll do lead generation for our freemium services where we do SAT prep. And it's like, no, that's lame. If we do something that's good for SAT prep, and the delivery cost is 0 to the incremental person, like if you have the cure for cancer,
right.
You're not going to charge the person dying for cancer.
Unless you're in the pharmaceutical
Unless you're in the
industry.
pharmaceutical,
Yes,
exactly.
Okay, fair enough.
But I guess the mental simulation in my mind was, well, let's imagine it to be a success. And I did think, first of all, that we were going to get much more goodwill and people helping us if we were not for profit. But the other mental simulation is what did we want this to become? Because in the for-profit realm, a big success would have been an exit, and you know, I'd buy a nicer house and another Honda or something like that. But in the
Prius, go ahead.
Perhaps. But there is an opportunity here because the content is so timeless, and it's not just videos anymore. There's software, all of this. There was an opportunity to become an institution. I think we're at an inflection point where, you have your famous institutions in America, the Harvards, the Stanfords that exist, and they're doing amazing things. But I think it's kind of shocking that there's not a new generation of institutions that are coming about because of all of this crazy stuff that we're in the middle of, that we're in this, as I think you mentioned, the Florence of our generation. Or, you know, the Jerusalem at the, you know, the millennia ago, or whatever it is. And so there should be new institutions, and I hope that we are one of those.
So let's talk about that. So you're in the middle of this thing, and all of a sudden a check shows up, I think from, is it Andor? Is that
yes.
So explain what that, just say what happened.
Oh, no, well, you know, I got a PayPal donation for $10,000, and I was, wow, and unsolicited, you know, I was just checking my emails, like $10,000 on PayPal, that's very
Hi,
good.
honey, hey, hon,
exactly.
Order steak tonight.
That's very good. Yeah, we were living off of savings, it wasn't going that well, and so I immediately emailed Andor, and the name had rung a bell, but maybe there are many doors, I don't know, and so I said, you know, this is the largest donation we've ever gotten. If we were a real school, you would have a building named after you. But thank you for this.
Yeah.
And immediately, like in 20 minutes, she's like, oh, we should have lunch. I was like, oh, great. So I went to lunch, and I had these little like placemats that were like my PowerPoint presentation. And then she's like, so how are you living right now? And I said, well, you know, I have some savings from my old job, but you know, I'm kind of updating my resume as we speak because it's
LinkedIn. That's a separate story.
Yeah,
okay,
that was
a
kind of a separate thing. And I remember literally on the drive back home, you know, she was kind of thinking about it a little bit. And on the drive back home, I got a text. She's like, well, you have a salary now. And so she gave that first donation to make sure that I could pay the mortgage.
Okay. Isn't that an amazing story? Part two. Part two. Talk a little bit about the guy that was standing behind you at TED.
Yes. So literally about 2 months after that, I was running this little summer camp, and I had all these kids playing Lego sumo wrestling. There was a battle royale going on. And I got a text message from Anne. She was at the Aspen Ideas Festival, and she says, I'm in a room of 2,000 people, and Bill Gates is on stage talking about you right now. And I was like, that prankster Ann, she's not.
That devil.
But you know, and I started web search to see if it was online. I had trouble in a few days. I did see, wow, like Bill Gates, he says his kids use it, he uses it. I started like, what did I say in these videos? Like, this might be irresponsible. But I didn't know what to do with that. Like, I was just like, well, I guess he likes. Like, I didn't have any context. And then 2 weeks later, I get a call from his chief of staff. Saying, oh, I don't know if you heard, but Bill is a fan, and he would like to meet if you have some time. And I was looking at my Google.
Okay, you look at your calendar.
I was looking at my calendar, and it was like completely empty. and I
could pencil you in.
Yeah, I said maybe Wednesday at 2:45. Maybe if I move a few things around.
And so the Gates Foundation has now made a substantial contribution to the Going Academy. So the third thing, what I want you to get a sense of this is, look, this is a completely innocent activity. It is just putting yourself in service to the world and letting the world respond. Is that fair? I mean, kind of see what's going on. Yeah. Okay. So the third piece of this is the Los Altos School District. Now, when you say a city and then the word school district, innovation isn't necessarily the first thing that comes to mind. But talk about what they're doing.
Yeah, so it was literally not even a year ago that we got our first major funding from the Gates Foundation and from Google, and we were just ramping up our team. We had hired a president, a COO, and our first engineers to build out the exercise platform that lets every student work at their own pace and master concepts that the videos complement. And literally, within 2 weeks, a board member at Mark Goines said, hey, you should meet the board and talk about some of your ideas. So we met the board, and they said, what would you do if you had anything to do with a fifth grade classroom? I was like, let me just say something crazy. So I said, I'd have every kid work at their own pace. They'd master concepts before moving on. And no lectures in classrooms anymore. And the role of the teacher, they will get as much data as we can give them and only intervene when it's necessary. When a student is struggling, or even better, get peers to intervene with each other, and it was both Shantanu and I was in that meeting, and they were, they nodded a lot and felt good and all the rest, but we literally walked to the parking lot like, oh, they'll never want to do this. This is crazy. And literally in like 2 days, they sent us emails, can we start in 2 weeks? No, they're really an amazing.
And in this model, the homework and the classroom get reversed, right?
That's step one. Well,
Okay,
I said the flip halfway through a talk I once gave, and that, So the flip is what people were doing with the videos by themselves, right? Like give the lectures at home, pause, repeat. You can do problems at school. Now we have all the software so that it can actually generate problems, have people work at their own pace, generate data for the teachers, suggest the right videos to watch at the right times. And so now what we're saying, whether at home or school or traveling, work at your own pace, doing the right thing.
Right.
And all of that data is surfaced to the teachers. And so when you go to the classroom, the teacher only intervenes when someone's stuck or gets their peer to intervene. And this is the important part. We just view it as a means, a tool to free up other class time. So now you can start doing the deep engagement. So if you go to those Los Altos classrooms, they're ultra interactive while they're working on this. They're helping each other and all the rest. But there's all this freed up time now where they're working on neat projects, figuring out the height of a hill or designing tiles, whatever else it might be.
So this is not a substitute for all. This takes a chunk of piece and does it extremely productively, but there's still time for other kinds of engagement, other kinds of interaction, other kinds of stuff.
Our mission is if someone has nothing else, we want to give them a good scaffold of a really rich learning. So if you're in rural India, you'll get something. But the ideal is if you have that plus a really interactive, awesome teacher. Then you
score. Just one last thing to close on, because I thought this was very interesting. So many of the people in this room were probably in the advanced placement classes of their school, and I think if you're in advanced placement, you kind of think, well, it's because I'm frankly a little smarter than other people, and not my fault. I just am. Listen to this story about who's smarter than whom in terms of what you learn when you have this thing in front of you.
Yeah, no, I mean, and we saw this with summer camp, but we see this in Los Altos very frequently. We see it every week, actually, is that when you let everyone work at their own pace, you see over and over again, right when you start, there's a group of kids that just race ahead, the traditional probably people in this room, the AP students, whatever else. And there's a bunch of students who kind of struggle a little bit. They're not progressing as fast. In a traditional model, you do an assessment. You're like, okay, you guys are going to,
A-lane.
Y'all are going to go to Stanford and all the rest, and you guys are going to do something else. But what we're seeing is a good number, and you can't predict who they are. When you give them the chance to focus on their foundations, negative numbers, multiplying decimals, whatever it is, every week, every month, we see one of those kids or several of those kids they spend a lot of time on one of these core concepts, and then they just race ahead.
It's like escape. They just escape.
Just escape. And over and over again, you see students who you thought were not meant to go to Stanford, and all of a sudden, well, maybe they are.
And you know what? They thought they weren't meant to go to Stanford. It's amazing. Well, please thank Sal Khan for this. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Sal. It's very good. Don't forget your gift. Wow. So this has been an honor for us 4 times in a row in classic Churchill Club tradition. I just kind of wanted to pull a couple of things together at the end that I think get missed elsewhere and that I think tonight was an incredible celebration of. The first thing is all 4 people tonight are product people, and the product is their medium. They're not investment. It's not. We're not playing PowerPoint games. I think it was Elon's statement that the engineer is the closest thing to a magician in the real world. Well, all four of these people, in their own senses, are engineers. And this notion that you prototype the product and iterate around the product, but we're talking about around Facebook, and discover through the product and make yourself vulnerable to being wrong, and to continually iterate, and to be sad and think, oh my God, what did I put on in that video that Bill Gates is now showing his children? And there's that permission in this valley and in this culture to take that risk. But you still have to have the risk takers. And it's very hard for the human ego to take those risks because you are wrong a bunch of the time. And you just saw four amazing folks. When Elon was talking about leadership, the thing that struck me so much was how humble he is. Not because he's trying to be humble. You know, it's just that he's just creating a space for other people to come into and be part of his effort. And that's what Sal's doing. He's creating a space that we all want to come into and be part of that effort. So there is a kind of a magic in this valley, and all we have to do is just give ourselves to it. So thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm Steve Bankston, Chairman of the Board of the Churchill Club and Director of Emerging Company Services at PwC. I want to take the opportunity to thank Geoffrey Moore for his accounting humor tonight and for doing such a wonderful job as our MC for the event. Congratulations to all our honorees. Your contributions are remarkable and your stories are inspiring. We look forward to continuing our recognition of excellence in the years to come with the aim to inspire others in the Valley. Let me also once again thank our sponsors for their support and the importance of their efforts. Shell, Accenture, a company called KPMG, Nair & Company, Fenwick & West, SRI International, Studio 22 Design, and Silicon Valley Bank. We invite you to join us tomorrow for the final event of our 25th anniversary year, Igniting Innovation and Mastering Change, a day-long conversation in 3 acts. It's a great day-long event with the breadth and depth of the topics and conversations that the Churchill Club ignites. Thanks all for coming tonight. Drive safely. Good night.